Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Reflections on Liber Cordis Scincti Serpente, vel 65, sub figura Adonai. The Book of the Heart Girt with the Serpent, chapter 1, verses 47 through 55. 47. There was a maiden that strayed among the corn and sighed. Then grew a new birth, a narcissus, and therein she forgot her sighing and her loneliness. The maiden is Persephone, alluded to by the corn, symbol of fertility, and of Demeter, her mother. In the ancient mysteries, Persephone, like Psyche in a similar myth, represents the soul. Her sighs are the loneliness of the soul in its apparent separation from its higher self. The narcissus flower stands for the practice of yogic pratyahara, the withdrawal of mind from the objects of the senses in order to become self-absorbed. The experiential distinction between subject and object is thereby suppressed, thereby eliding the self's sense of separation from itself. 48. Even instantly rode Hades heavily upon her and ravished her away. Hades is the god of the underworld or unconscious, and therefore here represents the secret self, neshama, or the divine genius. Yogic concentration is the prerequisite of dhyana and samadhi, which arise spontaneously when surface thoughts are quieted. Conscious communication between neshama and the ruach is thereby facilitated. There is also obviously a sex magical operation being alluded to by these mythological metaphors. The ecstasy of erotic arousal is a primary expression of the conatus of being in the world, and sexual climax is a species of dhyana, misunderstood by the vulgar, yet capable of being ripened into samadhi by the trained meditator or magician. 49. Then the scribe knew the narcissus in his heart, but because it came not to his lips, therefore was he shamed and spake no more. The scribe, Perturabo of the outer college, implicitly recognizes the significance of the preceding metaphor, but is unable to adequately express its meaning in the language of the Ruach. Therefore, his perspective remains at the level of shame or apparent separation from neshama. He spake no more in order to meditate, attaining the silence from which the voice of neshama is manifest as the inscription of the text of this holy book. 50. Adonai spoke yet again with V, and said, The earth is ripe for vintage, let us eat of her grapes and be drunk thereon. The matter of the new eon and the enlightenment of the world is now addressed. The harvest of grapes is humanity, their fermentation is the alchemy of the great work, and the drunkenness of Adonai and V is the ecstasy of attainment, what Aleister Crowley calls the next step that it was his mission to teach. I interpret the new eon as equivalent to the conditions of modernity, which provide the context for a renewed effort to liberate the potential for human flourishing based upon the best of the past, updated to the circumstances of the present. 51. And V answered and said, O my Lord, my dove, my excellent one, how shall this word seem unto the children of men? How will the gnosis be received within the conditions of modern life? For the prejudices of the old eon continue to vampirize the weak and cowardly, deceiving them into justifying oppression. Everywhere the dominion of the slave god seems a living force, even while God's corpse rots and decays in the tomb of exoteric religion. The Lord translates the Hebrew title Adonai, and the dove is the traditional symbol of the Holy Spirit, here a mode of expressing the descent of the holy guardian angel into the Ruach from above the abyss, as depicted on the lamen of the order OTO. 52. And he answered him, Not as thou canst see. It is certain that every letter of this cipher hath some value, but who shall determine the value? for it varieth ever according to the subtlety of him that made it. The wisdom of the new eon overthrows the old eon assumption that truth is unilateral and single. There are multiple unique approaches to reality. The import of the mysteries must therefore be individually interpreted. The true unity of spirit encompasses and includes the diversity of phenomenal being. Therefore, this holy book does not have a single meaning, but varieth ever according to the subtlety brought to its interpretation by its readers. Fundamentalist dogmatism has no place in Thelemic philosophy. 53. And he answered him, Have I not the key thereof? I am clothed with the body of flesh. I am one with the eternal and omnipotent God. The key thereof is the INRI formula of the Rosicrucian mysteries, signifying the kenotic embodiment of spirit in what Emanuel Swedenborg calls the universal human, where the biological anatomy of the human body is the form of the divine. This is further allegorically represented in the Fama Fraternitatis by the uncorrupted body of Christian Rosenkreutz, asleep within the vault of the Adepts, which is a symbol of the universe centered on the human body. Each and every magician fully instantiates and incarnates the divine, although mileage may vary as to their explicit comprehension of this fact. Ecstatic trance amplifies its understanding, while neurotic obsession occults it. 54. Then said Adonai, Thou hast the head of the hawk, and thy phallus is the phallus of Asar. Thou knowest the white, and thou knowest the black, and thou knowest that these are one. But why seekest thou the knowledge of their equivalents? The hawk is Horus, the sun god, and represents the living pharaoh, while Asar is Osiris, the dead pharaoh, reigning in the underworld, the domain of visions. The head is the seat of cognition and of the Gnostic understanding of the innate divinity of the self. The phallus dies at erotic climax, only to be simultaneously reborn in and as the ecstasy of orgasm, which is the divine ecstasy represented by Horus. In this sex-magical sense, the white, Horus, and the black, Osiris, are one. The formula of the Aeon of Horus is therefore not simply the overthrow of the symbolism of the Aeon of Osiris, but their completion through a deeper comprehension of their import. Thelema further posits their equivalence in terms of the 0 = 2 formula, which replaces the metaphysical dualism upon which earlier traditions were based and which has become incompatible with more modern philosophies. 55. And he said, That my work may be right. The practice of Thelemic magic is based on skeptical empiricism, yet such a pragmatic approach only supplies the methodology of the great work. It does not answer the question of what the absolute is or should be. The mythologies of the Aeon of Isis naively posited the gods as the ultimate reality, in conjunction with the natural world they were seen as having created. Eventually, the international urban cosmopolitanism, arising in the so-called axial age, resulted in philosophy replacing mythology as the basis for speculation into the ultimate nature of reality. Greek metaphysics, the darshana of the Indian subcontinent, and the Chinese schools all arose during this period and came to inform the religions of the Aeon of Osiris. With the major exception of Buddhism, these traditions tended to posit ultimate truth in a supernatural reality from which nature has fallen or evolved. Platonism perhaps exemplifies this position. The death of God in modern society has also meant the demise of this other world. In its place, Thelema asserts the absoluteness of the Kabbalistic zero as the horizon for the modern revival of theurgy so that its work may be right. Love is the law, love under will.